Okay, so hello everyone, I will talk about server environments. I will start with a small definition about what are environments, how to use, how to configure, and then how to code. But it's not the only solution, you've got other alternatives. I will show you at the end. If I had enough time, I will do a demonstration. We will see. So I'm Raphae Reverdy. My nickname on GitHub is HParFR. I work at Accretion France. I put the profile picture on GitHub because it's not my face. So you may have seen this picture of me. And I'm working on some Odoo project. This year it was bike industry. And I work also on DevOps toolchain at Accretion. Accretion is a cooperative. Accretion France is based at Lyon in France. We are around a few years, and we do Odoo projects, mainly Odoo community, and we host our projects, but not all Odoo version, as you may guess. So definition. So what are environments? For keep it simple, let's say we've got 3 environments. One is the production. It's the live environment when there is the real customer in front of Odoo. The CI or testing or staging environment, it's usually when you do your test, maybe where your customers are doing their test before the go live. And there is also a development environment. It's can be on your laptop, on your dev box, on the internet, but it's usually where you develop. In all these environments, there is sometimes credentials, and this talk is mainly about how to store and how to use credentials. What I mean by credentials is your login passwords, URL of external service. And we will say it's when Odoo create a connection to an external server. It's really the important part, because in this kind of service connection, you have to know where to connect, and login passwords usually should be should be readable from the Odoo Python code. So the usage is ADI, banking integration, payment providers, of course emails. It can be also transport systems like delivery. And about protocol, it's SMTP, MAP, SFTP, or REST, HTTP. You have choice where you put your credentials in the system. The first one is inside the Odoo database as a record. It's the most common one. And you've got also credentials like the database URL you connect to. It can't be inside Odoo, of course, because you need it to connect. And there is also, for a really strong security system, you can put your credential in a proxy server. But usually you don't see this kind of system in the wild because it's really complex to implement. I've put on this side some modules, and if you have seen, for instance, Sentry or Busalt connection, you see it doesn't use the database, but you've got already credentials. So the most common one is on this side. And we'll talk more about this one. Then, credentials can be inside the database record. It can be set through the front end or as an XML file by a module, so it's in the source code, or you can inject it with some SQL script or something else you run on the server. You can also use environment variables or file configuration. It's the odoo.cfg. And then you need usually to put it directly into the server on the hosting platform. Or maybe you can store it into the source code, but then you have to secure it because you don't want to leave credential in plain text in Git. And with credentials, there is risks because you don't want anyone to know how to connect to external system because usually you have a privileged access to resources. And you have to keep in mind that everything in the database are dumped and can be restored from a dump, from a backup. So you don't want to put your credentials in read only in the database. And there is also a risk that the wrong environment. So if you put your production credentials and you use it in your dev box, you can do some nasty stuff. So it's about danger and it's about leak. Leak, it's the confidentiality of the password. You don't want anyone to access it. And the danger is that you hit the wrong service in the wrong environment. So now I will go with few use cases to demonstrate it. The first one is quite common. It's the IMAP services. It's when Odoo fetch email. So Odoo read emails. Odoo initiates request to an IMAP server. So it's the incoming email. And then it reads the email. So you have to tell Odoo how to connect to this server. So you have a login, a password, an IMAP host inside Odoo. It's used by the base module of Odoo, and it's a record in the database. So usually it's fetched by a cron, so it's the scheduled action, run periodically. And then your client calls you, and they say they don't find all the emails they should have. And the client is usually sure his own customer sent in the email. If it checked, and it's something that happens. And of course, you don't have access to all the system along the line, so you don't know if the first one really sent his email, if it's not in its outbox, if it's stuck somewhere on the line, catch in an anti-spam. And when you test, it works. And that's the main point, it's when you verify, you can't be sure. And then you start to spend hours and hours, and then you get it. What happens? It's, oh no, shit. Okay, so. The thing is that you've got another environment. It can be a CI server, so a staging server, or maybe it's your dev box or the one of your colleague, and he tried to fetch emails. Because he has access, he succeeds to get the email. And because usually on IMAP servers are read, there is a mark. If an email has been read, it's marked as already read, and it's not fetched by the production. So it's really, really long. It's really stupid to have this kind of error. And this kind of error happens because there is a race condition. There is two systems fetching this very same server, and you just forget about this one. And you're maybe not aware of it. So what you do instead, you should have different credentials in other environments than the production server. It's quite simple, but it happens, and it happens to everyone. I will go to the question after. Thank you. It's the same with bank statements. If you import banking information, it's best if there is no missing transaction, and because otherwise, if the client, your customer, figure it out, He has fear because it's. Then you said you can just disable cron, so other system don't fetch emails. And I will show you that it's a good idea, but it's not always the good one. Now we'll talk with a second use case. It's about shipping label. Shipping label is that kind of stuff you put on the box when you send it. And we have clients who do, we integrate Odoo with delivery service. So on a stock picking, you hit the confirm button and then you fetch a label. And sometimes, like with this guy, which is a big player in France, you have two things to do. You have to call a web service to get a shipping label at the time you confirm the picking. So it should be on the same transaction as the picking validation. And then at the end of the day, you put an edifact, it's a really old system, to tell everything you sent. And the interesting part is that for testing, because you have to test this stuff, you have a different area, you are with different credentials. And credentials are specific to the customer. So you can't put testing information inside the source code and publish the source code. It's something that should be kept private. So it looks like this. When you confirm a picking, you get a shipping label from an API. So it's a different protocol, but it's quite the same. Then there is a cron who announce the delivery. And if you disable cron, you don't have this problem, but this one will still be there. You may want this one. It's something really common in the transport industry. Sometimes you want the CI to fetch real label, or the developer setup to fetch real label to see if that the write is good, the address is confirmed, or other things. And then you want to announce the delivery to another service. And this one is really important because if you don't do it, all the boxes will not find the way to the final client. So it's quite different than before because you want credential in CI environment, but real one. So you want, during the work, usually you start to develop with fake data. Then you want plausible data. It means it looks like real addresses. And there is really, really strange address into the wild, so sometimes you want more real data in this step. And you have to check with the carrier, the delivery carrier, before going in production. And then it's happened always, you have to debug, because you don't know how strange addresses can be. And you, of course, on your dev box or in your CI server, you don't want to enter credential all the time. This one is quite the same. You may want to publish invoices to something like an F3 bucket. It's object storage kind of stuff. And on the CI, on your dev box, you want to publish on the local folder. Because sometimes you want just to be sure about the kind of the report. And the target is not the same. Here, it's one protocol, and then it's just a local file. It's the last use case, but it's all use case we've got, so I think it can be interesting. When you do e-commerce, sometimes it's different team, and they want, you are maybe in charge on the Odoo team, and the front-end team need a real product catalog. And we've got, like this kind of e-commerce, it's a real one. There is many products in many languages, so you don't want to use a Odoo website. It will not handle the load. So you have to publish the catalog in a search engine. Like Elasticsearch Engine is the most famous one. So you've got two search engine servers, one for production and one for staging, because you may introduce changes in how the products are described. and you don't want to break production. So you need real data on a staging server. So you've got, as before, Odoo publish products, catalog, brand, or whatever to this kind of Elastic search engine. It's like another database. And this one is the front end. It can be Nux.js or another application. And it needs to read the product. So in production, so far, it's good, it's easy, and then you want to introduce change. So you need to publish products to another Elastic. It's not the same one, because you don't want to change, to send garbage into the production. This alternative front end usually is not your problem, it's more the web agency problem to handle this one. But then, because you are doing e-commerce, it's a two-way system, so the front end needs to push sell orders. And for the test, of course, you want this system to push sell orders. So it means credentials can be also used in this side. It means Odoo allows this one to connect to himself. And it looks like nothing like that when you see the slide, but in the reality, it's really, really complex to handle. So there is other use cases. I talked some of them. You can publish product catalog to marketplace. This one, when you export VAT declaration or other thing to government, usually you don't want to do it from the staging servers, because when you do, it's really long I mean, it's sad to pay a fine on that. I will do the demo after, I think. So, I have presented what are environment, why you need it. Now I will focus more on how can you do with the help of some modules in the OCA. So we've got this one. It's the main one. It's named server environment. I don't know if you're aware of it. He's quite alone in his own repo on the OCA. It's the base module. It's the one you need. And then if you want, but it's optional, you can add this one or both of them. But this one is really the most important one. I will go into the detail. Before I said, you can store information. It was in the first slides. You can store the credential inside the database, or you can store it inside environment variables or Odoo configuration file. And when it's inside the database, usually you want also to change it with the Odoo web interface. It's something important is that who will change this credential? Is it the final users, your customer, or is it yourself because it's a technical service? So when it's technical, I suggest, but you can do it differently, to put the configuration, the credential inside configuration files, and when the user should have self-service inside the database directly. Like for instance, your Stripe credentials, usually the user will know his credential himself, you don't have to push it. But when it's a CDN, so a content delivery network service account, usually the customer don't know about it. It's more something you as an integrator, you will set it. Just to come back, when user sets information himself, you may want to use this one, but you can't use always, like if the parameters are coming from the config parameter. It's a bit technical, but it's just a special case. when it's in this table, you have to use this module. Now, about which module we are talking about, in this special OCA, I didn't put the URL, in this OCA repository called server-env, you will find these modules. It's more client modules. It's something like, because the email, like the IMAP at the first, it's something in the Odoo base module. You have to add this mail environment module to use server environment. You've got the same for the SSO, the IAP, I don't remember the name, OEDC, it's also SSO. And some other modules don't require the environment. There is already, the dependency is already inside, like connector search engine. When you install this module, you have to, server environment is a dependency. And other modules don't depend on it at all, but can benefit of it, like the excellent one, web environment ribbon. I don't know if you use it, but it's a live server, because it puts you a ribbon on the top of the screen, letting you know on which server you are targeting. Then how to use. I put an example with connector search engine. It's a dependency of the one for Elastic I showed you before. Here are the dependencies. So you see server environment is a dependency of this one. And then usually you can just install it and do nothing more, and you can use it, but you don't benefit from server environment. The thing important is that sometimes you install a module which depends on server environment, but you don't have, it's not mandatory to configure it, but you will not benefit of it. So it's okay if it's a dependency, you don't want to use it. Or you can configure it, or you can install another, this little guy, it's an additional one, and benefit of the safeguard and feature presented just before. So now, how to configure it? It's not that hard. It's written in the README, but not everyone reads READMEs. So I will just show you a bit. In the odoo.cfg, it's the default configuration file. You may want to set up this environment variable, this variable. And for instance, I put prod for production, it's the name of my environment, but you can put what you want here. And then you can add some other things like outgoing mail, so it will force any new record inside the database to use this host with this encryption. You can go through, in the docs there is more examples. And the thing is that this particularity, this setup is just in the production odoo.cfg. On the CI or on your dev, you don't have this one. You will have like a dev, and here it will be empty or it will not be there. So you have to manage it somehow inside your stack to have different configuration file in different environments. For instance, with this one, server environment here config parameters, this is the ribbon I talked before. This module is really a live server. You have to install it, and you can install it in your production. And then you say nothing here. Ribbon.name is empty string, and you will not see the ribbon in production. But then, when you are in CI, you will just put CI or the CI plus the date, and you will see from when your database is. I will just show you a bit about this one. Server environment data encryption. This one lets you store the credential inside the database. It's a bit different. It's really powerful. The setup is a bit harder. You have to generate keys. Keys are this kind of stuff. Usually you just use this Python code to generate it. It's also inside the README. And you put, in the production config file, you put only the keys. The keys for all the environments. And then, in your CI, for instance, you will put the key only for the CI and the dev, not the prod. You remove it. And on your dev, only the key for the development. And in that way, each environment can decipher the key he has. So the dev should understand only the keys encoded with these keys, the CI for 2 of them, and the same for the prod. So how it looks in real, here I'm on the production. On the production, I have set up 3 keys, one for prod, one for CI, and one for dev. So when I enter a compatible module, I have this button on the top, and it says, this is the credential for the prod environment, so it's the name of my environment, and I will put the real host with the real key, the real password, and so on. And then, if I hit the CI button, it tells me I am entering credential for another environment, not the running one. But I have the CI key in the prod, so I can put different value here. And it's the same for the dev. And when I am on the dev machine, for instance, I will not have this button. And this one will be blue, and I will see only this dummy stuff. So the credentials are stored inside the database, but you can't access it on the wrong environment because you don't have the keys. And when you look how many records I just have one record, only one record, but 3 credentials, one for each environment. The production can decipher all the keys, but the CI can decipher his own and the dev only his one. And it's really, really important. In that way, it's kind of secure at rest. You can put your credential inside the database. Someone can take a dump, restore it in another environment, but because he has not the production key, he can't have the production credentials. Now I will speed up. How to integrate your module when you are a developer. It's really simple. You just have to depend of server environment module. And so you have your fields like this one. You have to inherit these 2 mixins, and you add this little guy here. It's just a command name, and if you do like this, it works out of the box. And it's only that. It's really easy to implement. There is no excuses to not allow it. So the other solutions, I'll be quick on this one. There is this new guy since Odoo 16, it's neutralize.sql. You can put a file named neutralize.sql into the data folder of your module, and then you can do stuff like that, disable things, change default name. It's not as powerful as server environment, but it can save you from things. And you can use both of solutions. You can use neutralize and server environment. So it's really basic, all of nothing, but it's included inside Odoo. So it will be it's standard, let's say. And because there is scripts, you have to test it, and you have to remember to test it, because like on the OCA, we don't test if there is something inside. And it should be run at some point into the workflow. And this one is really, really, really the pain point, is that you have to keep it in mind. You have to run it somehow. It can be on the dev box, on the CI server. So this one is the same, but it's what you may do before still. And usually when you want to get a test data, a real database, real data on a dev desktop, usually sometimes you do a PG dump from the production. It's something I don't recommend, because you may forget to run, you can't enforce to run this neutralized thing. So first it's best something to do. It can be a CI server or command line to ask some service to ask a database, do the pg dump, restore it somewhere else in another instance of Postgre, run the naturalize, dump, and finally answer. So the main point is don't fetch a production database when you develop. You will forget to run cron, to disable cron, you will forget to run neutralize, enforce a systematic workflow. So in conclusion, server environment is good. It adds a little of complexity at the start of the project, but then you don't touch it that much, and it saves your ass when something goes wrong. And just something, it's on this repo. And this is the list of contributors of the module I'll show you. It's been there since really long time. It's used in production in some big companies, so it's safe to use it. And if you need to store secrets like the credential keys, I recommend to use SOAPs. It's another thing, but I don't have to explain it that much. So my presentation is done. Thank you for all. Okay. Do you have to take one or two questions?
With the data encryption mechanism, is it correct that you just need the encryption key in that case in the server environment config?
Yes. With server environment data encryption, it's kind of symmetric encryption. So you've got a key, so the 3 keys I just showed you before, and then when Odoo should encrypt the password, it asks you on which environment you want to encrypt it. And then when Odoo needs to read it, it will see in each the key he has access to, and it will continue to try all the keys until he has found the good one. So it means you have to put all the credentials in all environment inside the production, and then inside the other environment you will be allowed to decipher it. And the second good point is that you can do kind of a rollout of new keys, because you can put a new production key, and the old production key can be also available into the production. And then, over the time, you can change the keys.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you talked about enforcing systematic database dump.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, do you often apply this in a CI/CD pipeline? Like, let's say you are pushing some code into production, and you might want to test your new features on a copy of the database, but yes, actually, making sure that you do not bring the sensitive data. You talked about anonymizing and scrambling the data. Do
yes,
you often include that part in the CI/CD, or how often do you make a fresh copy of your production for test?
Okay, so at creation on our CI system, each day we do a full backup of every database of our clients, and each day on the morning we do a restoration of every database, and then we publish it on the staging server. It's template database for each client, So when some developers want to publish a new version of one of the projects, it grabs the backup, the restoration of a backup of the previous day. And in our restoration process, we do some SQL command to disable or anonymize database if needed, or something like that. And then it's good for us because the client is happy to test with fresh data. You don't have to bother to update it. And it tells us that the backup system is working. So it's a win-win strategy. But it's a bit hard to set up and to scale with the number of servers.
Yeah. So the backup system automatically anonymizes the data?
Yeah. It depends of the client. We've got one client who is a strong need of anonymization, but it's something you can't automate because you can leak personal information everywhere. It can be inside the PDF, inside of course, the partner table, but on the mail messages and so on. So it's something really tied to one project. And in our system, all the developers are asked to take a data, if they need to develop locally, they should go from the staging database server to take the database. But sometimes it's happened that the project is not in our hosting system, or it's a really old client with old modules and not everything is in place. But if someone is interested to see how it works in more detail, I can do a demo to anyone after. Okay, thank you.